Hi, home bakers! Today I'm in the kitchen making traditional English scones.
Nothing says elegance and classic home baking than the English scone. A perfect balance with its soft, tender texture and buttery richness.
Baking these classic English scones will fill your home with an irresistible aroma of warmth and nostalgia. With a slightly crisp golden crust and a tender light interior, they're perfect for afternoon tea, breakfast, or served alongside your favorite meal.
So let's get into the kitchen. This is how I make the classic English scone.
For this recipe, I'm going to start with the dry ingredients. To a large bowl, add in 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, which I know sounds like a lot, but we really need the power from the leavener to lift and rise this thick, dense dough. For taste, I'm going to add in a 1/4 cup of sugar and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Whisk this together to distribute all the dry ingredients evenly. Then I'm going to add in a 1/4 cup of cold cubed butter. I just pre-diced the butter into tiny little cubes to make it easier to work them into the dry ingredients. Now I'm going to use my fingertips to rub the butter into the flour until I have a dry oatmeal-like consistency. You could also use a fork or pastry blender for this. For me, using my fingertips helps me feel when the consistency is right, and I normally have cold fingers anyway, so using my fingertips is my favorite way to do this. Now that the butter has basically disappeared into the dry ingredients, I'm going to add in 1 1/4 cups of buttermilk and 1 egg. This is going to add the perfect soft richness to the scones. If you don't have buttermilk, you can absolutely still make this with whole milk. Or add about a tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice just to your regular milk and let it set for a few minutes before adding it into the batter. I'm once again going to work this into the flour with my hands, just until the dough starts to hold together. Then tip the dough out onto a lightly floured counter. Fold the dough a few times to bring it together. I'm not really working and kneading the dough because I don't want to develop the gluten in the flour like you typically would with bread. I'm just sort of squishing and squeezing it until I have a uniform dough ball. I'm handling it as little as possible to make sure the scones are delicate and melt in your mouth after they're baked. Now I'm going to press the dough out into a thick circular disc. Make sure to move and flip the dough around as you're pressing it out. This is just going to make sure that none of the dough is sticking to the counter. You could also use a rolling pin for this, but I find this just as easy. And now to turn these into scones. You can use a scone cutter, a large circular cookie cutter, or even an upturned cup. I'm going to place them spread out onto a baking sheet because they're going to rise and grow in the oven. Just before baking, to give my scones that beautifully glossy golden brown crust, lightly beat 1 egg and brush the top of each scone with the egg wash. And they're ready to go into my preheated 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 degrees Celsius oven for 12 to 15 minutes, or until the tops are golden brown. Cool for just a few minutes and then serve hot and fresh. This classic British bake is simple, rustic, and absolutely delightful. Serve them warm with strawberry jam and a dollop of clotted cream for the authentic afternoon tea experience you'll want to recreate again and again.
And as always, you can find a link to the full written recipe in the description box below.
Enjoy! If you're a fan of deliciously simple vintage recipes and old-fashioned skills, then you'll want to check out this next video. Thanks for stopping by.